Hello, welcome back. My name is Rachel, and I'm here to support you in creating a more fulfilling and intentional career and life. So today's topic is around career transitions and navigating all of the changes that are happening right now potentially for you, whether it is a layoff and it's something that was unforeseen and it's due to a workforce reduction of your employment, or maybe you're just at a place in life where you're really just questioning if the position that you're in right now is what you ultimately want to be doing for the foreseeable future. A few years ago, I actually posted a video all about why I quit my management consulting job that went somewhat viral, so you can take a look at that in the show notes. But other than that, I have had my fair share of career transitions. So I've been everything from a product manager, a project manager, management consultant, a content creator, a partnership director, all kinds of positions in marketing. I mean, the list really goes on. So I'm very familiar with this muscle of resilience that's been built over time around career transitions and how to step into your next role. These days, I feel like I can't log into LinkedIn or into social media without seeing something about layoffs or the job market. I feel like on LinkedIn, I'm definitely seeing a lot more people saying that they've been let go and they're looking for their next position over people who have actually accepted positions. And on social media, whether it's Instagram or TikTok, I keep seeing videos of people who are actually recording their layoff live and posting that experience on social media and going viral for it. So it's definitely out there, and unfortunately the job market is just not looking like it's picking up. So because the economy and the market is in such a state of unknown, there's so many people in my personal circle, people that I coach, that are experiencing this type of should I or shouldn't I type of experience when it comes to their career. Should I stay in this job that is extremely toxic to me? It's not the right work environment. It does not align with my values, but it's a stable job for now. Should I leave this position and strike off on my own and go into entrepreneurship over working at my employer? Should I go back to school? Should I do this? Should I do that? And there's a lot of should I's, but underneath all of the should I's, it's all rooted in fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of judgment potentially, fear of making the wrong move, or potentially even fear of making the right move and being afraid of what's on that side. So fear can really show up for us in so many different ways, and it can be amplified if we focus on that fear. So a lot of times with my clients and people that I'm surrounded with, I ask the question of, is it more important to lean into the fear, or is it more interesting and important to actually focus on the potential and the opportunities that could be right on the other side of that? So really, before getting into the tips and insights that I have seen over my own career, as well as the ways in which I approach the work that I do with the people that I support, is first off being very wary of who you actually seek advice and counsel from. And I have no question in my mind that everybody in your life wants the best for you. However, one thing that I have learned over the years, and quite frankly, I wish I knew this much earlier in my career and in my life, is that you have to be really cautious of who you ask advice from. Because let's say you are potentially wanting to step into a new career and it's a complete 180 of what you've been doing so far. If you ask a friend who has been in the same role, the same industry, the same type of job for 20 years, that person is going to have a much different answer for you versus the person who is freelance and who is an artist and a creative and has all kinds of different jobs and has a more unconventional work life. And so these two people, depending on who you ask, are going to give you completely different answers. So be really cautious of where you seek counsel, where you seek advice. And that's why I do really always recommend seeking someone who knows how to be objective when it comes to your life. Because the truth of the matter is that no one is going to know exactly what is best for you except for you. Now, if you are someone who is going through a transition and you are looking for your next role, or you've been looking for your next role and are looking for those tips, first off, I really want to emphasize the importance of compassion and self-compassion at that. And it's a topic that is really important to me because I grew up being extremely hard on myself, being very critical, and it gets you nowhere when you are like that. So in my more recent years, I've definitely leaned into the power of self-compassion. This is the first time that you are experiencing life in this way. And I think it's really important to kind of root yourself in that perspective, because how should you know exactly what to do or what the next step is? We're all just sort of navigating and doing the best we can in the moment, and our best looks different for everyone. So really just have compassion for yourself as you go through this process of looking for your next role, and be kind to yourself in the ways that it really means to you. So not being self-critical, not being judgmental of yourself. And I know it is much easier said than done, but as long as you can bring that awareness of when you are being harsh toward yourself, consciously telling yourself to show yourself some kindness in those moments is really powerful. All right, so let's get into some tips. So the first tip I have is actually to take a pause. This might be counterintuitive, and I think maybe a lot of times when people think about career transitions or layoffs, they think about, okay, let's optimize the resume, let's do this, let's do that. And those things are all really important and they're very tactical. But what I think is actually more important is leaning into the pause. The power of the pause can really intentionally focus your energy. Energy is actually best used and most beneficial when you can actually focus your energy. So rather than when you're on the job market going for this spray and pray type of approach where you are blasting out your resume to anyone that will listen and maybe not getting any response back, rather than actually expending all of your energy with that sort of strategy or tactic, it's best to actually take a moment for yourself, really identify what it is you want in this next phase, in this next chapter of your career, and have focused energy when it comes to really knowing what it is you want for your next step. And when it comes to focused energy, I do think it's really important to have a system in place as you go back into the job market. And at the top of this tracker, you can actually write down what your job non-negotiables are. And that brings me to the second step, is be curious. If you are someone who has maybe had a more traditional path, but you have a little bit of an inkling of something, or there's an article that really piqued your interest, or there's an industry that's really interesting to you, lean into those curiosities. So when I actually left my management consulting job, which I share more in that video that I referenced before, I leaned more into my creative side, my content creator side, and I was doing that for a few years. However, during the pandemic, something shifted in me where I was really needing different things in my life. It felt very isolating for me to be a content creator during a pandemic. It was something where it really took a toll on my mental health. And so in that moment, I was actually talking to a friend of mine, and he was mentioning a few things that he was really passionate about. Cut to the chase, long story short, I ended up working in crypto, which I think is such a random thing now that I think about it, but it's an area that I was really curious about. I was reading all of these articles about it, and I decided to just lean into that. And I got to experience so many interesting things. I led a huge national brand partnership with a very, very well-known artist. I got to go to several different concerts while he was on tour, got to travel the US. So it was a really interesting, albeit very chaotic time in my life, but I walked away with so many different life experiences. And so when you lean into your curiosities, you build different strengths, you build different muscles, and you're exposed to so much more. And it only makes your future journeys a lot more comprehensive. And there's a lot more things that you can share with the world and with future employers or with future content that you might be creating for yourself. So to be curious means you really have to pay attention to where your energy naturally goes. The next tip that I have is talking to people. And I know everyone says you have to network, but I personally hate the word networking because it feels heavy and it feels forced to me, and it doesn't necessarily feel authentic. For me, I would rather lean into connection. I want to connect with people. And what do I want to connect with people on? I want to connect with people not on my story necessarily, but I want to connect with them on their story and what they are going through. I have a very real world example. So with one of my clients, he was in this transitionary moment in his life where he was really leaning into solopreneurship. And he shared a few things that he was working on. And I was just naturally really curious. And I asked questions of where he saw his business, what his goals were, just wanting to really understand the journey that he was on. And it started off with me providing some light feedback around an event that he was creating, light feedback around a piece of design work that he was creating for a client of his. And so I started to pepper in little areas where I knew that I would be valuable to him, not in a way that I had any sort of motive or outcome around it, but because I came to the conversation with curiosity and genuine authenticity around wanting to see where I could contribute to him in his journey, that naturally actually led to a long-term business partnership with him. And so I think when you come to these conversations wanting to have an agenda around what you want to share, I think that's actually the wrong approach. So when you seek out people that are within your network, that are within your circle, and you want to connect with them on points that are really important to the other person. And you just never know where that could lead you. Next, I have to say, lean into the importance of knowing that whatever state that you're in right now, nothing is permanent. Just having that perspective to know that if you do take that role that you're just kind of on the fence about, or that you are not sure about, and down the road you realize that definitely wasn't the right move, know that you can pivot at any time. If you are someone who has worked several years for someone else and you're really curious about wanting to be your own boss and you lean into that and it doesn't work out, that's okay. You can always get another job. You can always go back to what it was you were doing. You can always explore a different path, and that's what makes life so interesting. I know that it can be very stressful for some people to lean into that change and lean into that unknown, but know that you will be okay because nothing is permanent. You can lean in, you can lean out, you can pivot at any moment. And lastly, rather than focus on how long is it going to take for me to land a job or get into that next position, is it going to take me 3 months, 6 months, a year, longer than a year? A lot of times I do hear this type of question with the people that I work with. The most important thing is building the muscle of resilience to take action, building consistency in doing what you said you would do. So what that means is really sit down and be consistent with whatever it is that you would like to plan for, whether that is applying for one job every day, whether that is setting up one coffee chat with somebody in your network and circle a week, whether that is creating content on LinkedIn or on social media to build up your personal brand and get your name out there, and doing that every week. So whatever the goal is for you and what that looks like for you, be consistent with it. Because when we focus on those steps, the outcome will naturally fall into place. I really hope that these tips have helped you, and feel free to reach out, and I will see you next week.